What's going on, everybody? I'm Matty Kiwoom, and today's fantasy football lesson brought to you by South Harmon. I'm talking about players to buy right now in fantasy football. These aren't just any players. These are the players that you need to be adding to your playoff-bound rosters. Contenders, look in the mirror. Are you a contender? Boom. If you are, these are the players you have to be adding now to bolster your lineup later to dominate your fantasy playoffs. The first player on today's video is Calvin Ridley. Ridley has the 7th best playoff battle score for wide receivers. He'll see the Bengals, the Colts, and the Jacksonville Jaguars in the fantasy playoffs. Over the last 3 games for the Tennessee Titans, those are the 3 games post DeAndre Hopkins trade to the Chiefs. Ridley has seen 10.7 targets per game. He's made 6.7 receptions per game. He's averaged 100 yards per game. And he's also averaged 20.1 fantasy points per contest. We have now seen him have success with Mason Rudolph and Will Levis, who he's played well with both quarterbacks on the Titans. Someone in your league has kept Calvin Ridley this whole time. They've rostered him while he's put up dud after dud after dud. And they did that for you. So it's okay to pay them for their services and buy Calvin Ridley. The next player is Rico Dowdle. He has the 8th best playoff battle score for running backs. He sees the Panthers, the Buccaneers, and the Eagles in the fantasy playoffs. And I know the Eagles are a tough matchup, but getting to the dance matters too, people. He's completely affordable right now in pretty much all formats across fantasy football. Despite the down perception, despite the market being a bit deflated on the back, he's still averaging 12 fantasy points per game. He's running back 27, top 30 guy. Pretty productive in fantasy. He has the 3rd best yards per route run amongst qualified running backs too, which means he's been a weapon in the passing game. And without Dak Prescott, I think we can expect a lot more checkdowns going to the backs in Dallas. And regardless of quarterback, could be Cooper Rush, but also it could be Trey Lance. And Trey Lance, we know, is a running quarterback. He is a guy who can scoot on the ground, and typically, historically, those type of quarterbacks are beneficial for running backs. So if Trey Lance is the guy in the fantasy playoffs, that could help Rico Dowdle for sure. And Dowdle, ladies and gentlemen, he is poised to join a long list of guys in history become the who the fuck is that guy. But those running backs helped win championships, and Rico Dowdle may be on a lot of those championship rosters, so buy the running back from Dallas. Folks, you're actually going to get a 2-for-1 special here. I'm going to talk about Jakobi Meyers and Brock Bowers. The Raiders pair have the 2nd best battle score for the fantasy playoffs. They get the Falcons, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Saints. In our 1QB seasonal leagues, Brock Bowers is ultra valuable. He's a top 30 warp player, and Jakobi Meyers continues to climb those charts. And if you want to see the literal warp charts, head over to southharmonff.com now. Over these last 2 games in which the Raiders have played without Davante Adams, Meyers has seen a bump in volume. 18 targets, 157 receiving yards. He has scored a touchdown, and he scored 35.7 fantasy points in those 2 contests. And Bowers, he's tight end too. He's scoring over 14 fantasy points per game. Now, of all the players that I'm going to talk about in this video, these 2, I would highly recommend being very, very careful. You do not want to overpay. And if you're not sure about the price tag and you want to bounce it around here at South Harmon, go to patreon.com/SouthHarmon, join the Discord, and we will help you buy Bowers, help you buy Jakobi Meyers at a good price. The next player is the only quarterback on the list, Kyler Murray. He has the best playoff battle score for quarterbacks. He gets the Patriots, the Panthers, and the Los Angeles Rams. Murray is providing a ton of value even in our 1QB leagues. He's a top 75 overall WARP player and a top 10 quarterback in that metric. He's been so accurate, especially in the red zone when it matters most for us fantasy gamers, getting those points, helping us build those leads and dominate. The Cardinals offense, matter of fact, they've been playing fast and effective, and Murray is still an elite rusher at the quarterback position. Arizona, they're heading into their bye week. Now's the perfect time to creep over in there, extend some trade offers, and land K1. So bye, Kyler Murray. The next player is Alvin Kamara. He has the 6th best playoff battle score for running backs. He's got the Commanders, the Packers, and the Raiders in the fantasy championship. Kamara is simply, he's going to cost you, right? It's going to cost you a lot because he's been a dominant force once again in fantasy football. He's running back 2, and it's going to cost you. But he is absolutely worth the price. His underlying metrics support it, and most importantly, his wins over replacement supports the hefty price tag. He is the 2nd overall non-quarterback in WARP right now. He's been elusive. He's been explosive. He's looked a lot better in the running game than he did in 2023. And of course, Alvin Kamara has been a major weapon, a factor in the Saints passing game. Contenders! Put your ears up, hear me now. Alvin Kamara is the big ticket player. He is the biggest weapon to add in your league's fantasy football arms race. You want to build the scariest roster heading into the playoffs? Make sure you get Alvin Kamara right now. The last player on today's video is Jayden Reed. The Packers wide receiver has the 6th best playoff battle score for wide receivers. He'll see the Seahawks, the Saints, and the Vikings in our fantasy playoffs. He's been a top 35 overall player according to his current WARP. Reed has had some ups, but he has also had some downs, which is exactly why you might have an opportunity to buy as the Packers are coming out of their bye week. He's 6th in yards per out run, 5th in yak, 2nd in fantasy points per target, so the underlying metrics support production, the surface stats that help us win in fantasy football. Reed has shown explosiveness, and he's shown a really strong ability to separate at a very high level here in his sophomore campaign. Buy Jayden Reed, folks, in hope that the volume is there in our fantasy playoffs, because if they are, Jayden Reed is going to rack up some fantasy points and help you rack up those fantasy championships. So buy Jayden Reed. If you believe that you are heading for your fantasy league playoffs, then you need to buy these guys. You need to get Calvin Ridley, Rico Dowdle, Jakobi Meyers, Brock Bowers, Kyler Murray, Alvin Kamara, and Jayden Reed. Get these players now, set your team up for the playoffs later, and come back to me. We'll pop bottles for those fantasy championships. I'll see you next time. Peace.